So if I start talking too quickly, tell me to slow down, and I'll slow down. So I've been a game designer since I was 10 years old. Since I'm an old guy, that pretty much predates computer games. So a lot of what I'll be talking about is my first love, which was board games. Because I grew up playing card games and board games and role-playing games, as in the paper and pencil role-playing games. And so that's sort of where I began, and then as the years went by and my career sort of took off, then I began consulting on different computer games and such. So, and now of course, I do some consulting with apps, but it's, I believe it's all the same thing. A game is a game is a game. So, games are supposed to be what? They're supposed to be fun. If a game is not fun, no one will play it, okay? But they're serious at the same time. A game could be about something more than just a waste of time. Some very, very good games are about something completely different. And fun matters. If there is no fun in a game, you will lose. And I think a lot of times game designers often forget that key component of a game, which is that it has to entertain. So, can you read that? Okay, so games are the most elevated form of investigation, Albert Einstein. When we play games especially, but any kind of play, we're basically discovering the universe around us. It's a kind of scientific inquiry. We're basically exploring the game universe, and in the process we're learning something about the real world. And we love games. When I began, game conventions in America were about 5,000 people, 10,000 maybe. And my first game convention I went to, was a little pack of cards called Whimsy cards that I made myself. I put them around my dining room table, stacks of them, and my business partner flaked out in about 3 hours, and I spent 5 days walking around that table, collating decks of cards. I went to this convention, it was 5,000 people. I met all the people I needed to meet for my life. I figured out how to do games. I sold 40 games. Now this convention is 35,000 people. So over the years, games are getting bigger and bigger. And as we've all seen in the last 10 years, games have gone from gaming geeks playing games on their Xbox and their PC to now your grandmother could be playing the same game on her phone that you are. I mean, everyone is playing games now. It's a completely changed world from what it used to be. It used to be that if you want to sell games, you're selling to gamers like you. Now most game designers are designing games that are not for gamers. Most game designers are designing gamers for everyone. And that's a huge change. It's a big, big change. What games have to be, that's my daughter, what games have to be most of all is fascinating. And I think a lot of people sort of miss this when they game design. They sort of go, well, I love this game, let's do it, only it'll be 3D, it'll spin. Well, the key thing about a game is it has to fascinate you. There has to be something about it that grips you and makes you have to play it again. Play it again is the key thing of any game, I think. Play it again. Does the person playing the game want to play it again? And so, as I said already, the pool of non-gamers is now much smaller than that is gamers. How many people know someone, a friend, who refuses to play any game? Okay, a couple of you. Let me tell you that when I was in high school, I was made fun of because I played chess and played games. Most people thought anyone who played games was an idiot. That's not true anymore, is it? And some people, however, claim that games are a distraction. That games can basically ruin people's lives because, in China they have all these camps for kids who are addicted to games. And parents send their only child to this camp, and the kid is deprogrammed from gaming. And this is true in a lot of countries. A lot of parents feel that games are destroying their kids' lives. My feeling, of course, is the opposite. I think that games are probably one of the best things a kid can do. And so, what's the deal then? Are games frivolous? Are they pointless and a waste of time? Or are they dangerous? When I was growing up, I used to play Dungeons and Dragons. And this is the very first role-playing game. And people actually thought that I was a Satanist. And that I was worshiping demons. And that I was going to go straight to hell. And so, this attitude is still alive in some places. People still think that if you play certain games that it's very, very dangerous. So my question always is to people is that, well, if you think games are a waste of time because you're just wasting your time because games are pointless, then how can a game be dangerous? If it's dangerous, it has to mean something. It has to be powerful in some ways. It can't be both. And so I say bullshit. So here's my Dungeons and Dragons, and I grew up playing this game, and this is pre-computer. I used to play a little bit online back then. Internet hadn't been invented, it was the ARPANET, and so we used to play a little bit of D&D online in a mud or a mush. Does anyone here know what a mud or a mush is? Okay, a couple people, that's old school gaming. But anyway, I learned a lot from games. I learned, before I even got to school, I learned what a percentage was. I learned fractions, I learned probabilities, negative numbers, game theory, and imagination. Games taught me all these things. Games made my life, it transformed my life, and it made me much smarter than I would have been otherwise if I was just sitting there bored in math class. So children's play, do adults play? I mean, we've all seen kids play, and they get so involved in their games. My kids will sit there for hours and play, they'll rearrange my entire house, they'll stack the chairs up, build blankets up, they're playing some wild thing, and I think the way we adults play is that we don't really feel free to, well, I do, but most people don't, of dressing up in costume and walking around the street pretending you're someone else. But if you play a game, you can play. And we all have this desire and need to play. We want to play, we want to flex our imaginations, we want to be someone else. And so games let us do that. So school is a terrible, terrible game, but it is a game. School is a game that's basically the most boring game ever invented. So school was basically a game where if you sit still for an hour, you won't get detention. Okay, that's a rule. If you stand up and act out and say what you want or walk to the window and look outside, then you'll get in trouble and your parents will get a phone call. Okay? It also has these tests every once in a while. And if you do badly on the tests, they're going to call your parents and you're going to be in trouble. So a game is this labyrinthine, really, really boring game that's really designed badly. And, but yet, it is a kind of a game because you can win and you can lose and sometimes you can have fun. So what is a game? Okay, this is the big question that a lot of us game designers have been asking each other for years now. And my favorite answer is a game is a series of meaningful choices. That's a quote from Sid Meier. Has anyone here ever played Civilization? Yeah. Okay, Sid Meier is the designer of Civilization. So he says a game is a series of meaningful choices. And I think the key thing there is choices and meaningful. Okay? So a choice means that basically you're making a decision. There's a decision point. And for you computer scientists out here, you know the logic tree. You come to the logic tree, you can choose this way or that way. And a game has some very clear-cut decision points. Some games you make 1 or 2 decisions every 10 minutes. Other games like StarCraft, you can be making 300 decisions in a minute. It really depends on the game. Also, other ones I like is a game is play with rules. So it's like kids playing house or playing cowboys and Indians, but there's rules. And rules are important because rules are what we as adults have to deal with every day. When you walk down the street, there are rules. And if you break those rules, you're going to get in trouble. It's part of the adult world. Yet, I think, I personally at least, I miss my childhood. I miss that time when, my parents had rules, but I could just be free to play. And then also, finally, process and system. I believe my theory of gaming is that games are about processes and systems, and that the game is replicating in a mathematical way some sort of real-world process and system. And I think that when a game does that well, we get addicted to it. We like it. Because I think that we're just evolved to like to learn. And we learn something new. And we learn something for ourselves. It's not told us in a lecture, but we kind of figure something out for ourselves. We get what I call the learning squirt. We just get a little bit of, ooh, I figured that out. And we like it. And games give us this more than any other kind of entertainment. Good games and bad games have a key factor in it, which I call negotiation. This is a terrible game, okay? Of all the board games to be the most popular board game in the world, why did it have to be this one? Okay, Monopoly is a boring game. It's a long, tedious game, yet even in Georgia, I would say most of you played it. Who's played Monopoly? Yeah, it's the world's most popular game, and it sucks. But the one thing about Monopoly that is fun is that a couple times in the game, there comes this moment where someone has something to sell, and everyone else wants to buy it, and there's a whole auction, there's a whole negotiation going on. And that's fun. That's the fun part of Monopoly. That's what you remember about Monopoly. That's why you like it. Okay? And that's the human interaction. And this is why I think many games that have human interaction are more successful than games that don't. So you can have a role-playing game that's just one person, one player, playing on his PC, or you can have World of Warcraft, right? So as soon as you bring all the people in, what you get is you have that delightful thing called negotiation. You have the interaction. It's more than just interaction. It's interaction with purpose. Like, hey, if you do this, I'll do that. Okay, and that's fun. Games are painless learning. When you play a game, it's basically you learn lots of things, but it's completely painless, unlike school. Cooperation versus teamwork. This is a board game called Pandemic. This is a cooperative board game. You do not fight each other. So some games can be games where you don't actually have to win. Or if you do win, you win as a team. And this is another key thing I think will be coming up a lot more in games in the future, is that I think we're going to see a huge wave of apps and indie games and mainstream games where basically no one wins. There is no winning, and it's just about the interaction. So the games, like I said before, have the hidden process and systems. There's things going on in the game, a hidden mathematical thing that happens. So if you see any game, I think it's pretty important, at least what I do, is I try to figure out, what is this, what's the mathematical system in this? What's going on? What's it fascinating me about this? And so when you see a piece of music, you know, there is a system and process in that, but it's basically a flow over time. But a game, right, you can't see that. You can't listen to a game. You can't watch a game like you watch a movie. You have to play a game to understand what a game's about. If you don't play the game, you at least have to read the rules, but most games don't have rules now. You have to play a game and understand it. You can't just look at a screenshot, right? It's very hard to do that way. And so, when I was a kid, I was really fascinated by cars and motorcycles, especially motorcycles. And no one could explain to me how a motor works. And so my dad pulled out a book, and he showed me a picture of a motor. And he started telling me how it all worked. And I totally did not get it. I didn't get it. It didn't make any sense. So then we went out to our little garden house. We took the lawnmower, and we took apart the motor. We literally pulled it out piece by piece. We took the motor apart, and then we tried to put it back together, and it didn't work. We had to take it to the repair. we lost a couple parts. But even after we took it apart, that helped. I still didn't understand it. And then my uncle brought over a very early computer game that basically showed how a motor worked. I had to make the different parts and steps work, and by doing that, I learned how a motor worked. Games can teach you much better than any other form of art how to do things. And I think that cannot be forgotten because people actually like that. You know, games aren't just about escaping from the world, they're often a good way to teach about the world. SimCity is a great example. How many city planners have started out by playing this game, right? This game teaches so many hidden processes and of how people interact on this mass scale. And it's a genius game made by a friend of mine, Will. So figure it out for yourself. That's the whole point of games. Figure it out for yourself. And you can turn anything into a game. These are action figures. It's a game I did years ago called ZG, Zero Gravity. And these are action figures that you had a different card for each part of the different action figure. And you could configure your action figure any way you wanted to, different colors in the same guy. And then you could fight it out. So I remember leaving the Comic-Con, San Diego Comic-Con, and there's like 20 kids in the airport all playing this game on the airport floor, zooming their action figures around. So you could make a game out of anything at all. And that's a good thing, you know? I mean, if you're hired by the Ministry of Agriculture to make a game, yes, you can make a game out of counting cows. You know, it's not, you know, you can make a game out of anything. This is my game, Democracy. This is a game that I came up with when I was working for Misha. And he and his staff didn't really understand what democracy meant, at least the way I thought it meant. And then all my friends who were in the opposition at the time, they also didn't seem to understand what democracy was. So this is a board game entirely designed and developed in Georgia, and it's about basically the negotiation part of Monopoly. It's about making deals and finding a compromise. And if you can't compromise with someone, you cannot win this game, just like in real democracy. And it's an unseen system, and you have to get different control of different things. So games are life in miniature. You know, the first real board game, the first game after chess and Nardi, that was little war games made by the German military. And they basically had these big sand tables, and they had little lead miniatures of soldiers. And they played out battles using the soldiers. And that's sort of the beginning of a modern day war game. So now we move on to how do you make games. So you can see that gaming is huge now in the world. These are serious numbers. When you're talking $20 billion, you know, that's an amazing amount of money. That is more than the entire economy of North Korea right there, okay? We're talking one segment is bigger than a whole country. Right now, games overall in the world make more money than Hollywood does in the box office. Okay, games are far, far bigger than anyone seems to realize. And it's interesting, I think, the different segments. The different segments, like even the Wii, I mean, who plays Wii anymore? And it's still making $3.7 billion. And look at the tablets. They're making huge amounts of money, and but overall it's a small slice. But the biggest surprise, I think, is how big PC is. Listen, you can joke, but this kid's a genius. This Union, he's a genius. Okay, he makes really, really hard games. In a million years, if you told me, yeah, Mark, if you design an app that's really, really hard and no one can win, do you think it'll succeed? And I go, no, of course not. You got to make a game easy, and it gets harder and harder. No, he just made a game that was really, really hard from the start. And it became so popular, he had a nervous breakdown and took it down. He was making $50,000 a day. And it took him like 7 days to design the game by himself. This shows you that you can live anywhere in the world. Anywhere in the world now, you can live and you can make a game and you can make a lot of money. This wasn't true even 5 years ago. It used to be true 10 years ago. You had to go to the convention. You had to go on your hands and knees and go, please, look at my game and publish it, please. It was really, really hard. Now, you just go to Steam and put your game up as an indie game, or you put it on the App Store. You can sell it. You can market it yourself. Okay, it's a changed world. You can live in North Korea and you can sell a game. You know? And so anyone here who wants to do games, you have no excuses anymore. And that's the downside. The downside is you don't have an excuse. You can't say, oh, well, I'm in Georgia, so, you know, we cannot be successful. Bullshit. Bullshit. You can be successful. You can totally do it. How do I run the video? There's a video there. Does anyone know Dots? Alright, Dots is a fantastic little game. And it's just blowing up right now. This also took almost no time to design. I don't think they even hired a graphic designer. They just did it themselves. Okay? And so the point I want to make with Dots is that a lot of times when I consult with people about doing games as an app or indie game, they have these big ideas. We want to do World of Warcraft, but for the iPad. Oh, okay, dude. That's, well, okay. You know? You cannot think so big. You know, my first game was a deck of cards. Not even 52 cards, it was 42 cards. Okay, and I hand collated it. Okay, your first game has to be tiny. Don't think you're gonna make a lot of money your first game, just practice. When you have an idea for a first game, make it a small little game, but get it out in 2 weeks. You know, put it up in the App Store and see what happens. It may not sell, it probably won't sell, but you're gonna learn something. You're gonna learn about how to put a game up on the App Store. You're going to learn about the community of people in the App Store. You're going to get emails from people saying what they like and don't like about it. You're going to learn to get a hard skin when someone slams your product and you learn not to care about it. Okay? Start small. Start with a little tiny game. Don't start with your big game. Put that in your notebook. Your idea for your big game, save that for 5 years from now. Or maybe 2 years. So, I don't know why this one's here. Alright, so, designing a game. Okay, one thing I suggest also is that you get a team together. Unless you're a genius programmer and you're a very big-time gamer and you're really good at it, it's much better to have a team than to do it alone. The reason is that later on you can do it alone, the band can break up and you can have a solo career. Okay? But initially, you're going to learn more when you have a small group of people working on a game. And you can do it in different ways. For instance, if you're really strong in terms of programmers, you would start down here with the mechanics and the verbs. In other words, programming, this is like you have ideas for clever tricks to make something work. And then you build up towards the concept. Or if you're really creative and you're hardcore gamers and you love games, you have lots of ideas, then you start with the concept and you move on down. You know, you can go either direction, but start somewhere. And be very, very flexible. A lot of times people, when they have these discussions about how to do game design in their team, they start hammering heads against each other. People get stuck and they go, no, I won't do that. And I'm the programmer, so if I say no, it's no. Okay, well, you know, if your programmer says that, find a new programmer. All right? If your creative person says that, find a new creative person. If your artist says that, find a new artist. If your music person says that, find a new music person. Anyone is replaceable. Find a good team, work together, make a name. Okay, creative process. Kind of missing parts of it. All right, this chart's interesting as well, but I'm not sure. Can you read it? So the top, you can see the back is long term and the front is short term. And top to bottom is first and last. So you start with the player. You want him to have a strong motivation to play, right? You want to catch them up. And the game demo is over, by the way. In case you're trying to market your games with a game demo, that's done, okay? Game demo's done. What works now is a 1-minute video. That's all you need. A very simple, clear 1-minute video. No frills, no bullshit, no like some cute girl talking about it. No, just show the game in 1 minute. That's how you do it now. All right? Then you have meaningful choices. You're going to go through the starts with tactics and strategy. This is game design. Balance with the variables. Usability, key. right? How many games were a great concept and then you can't figure out how to move things around? You can't figure out how to go between menus. That's always the place where consultants make a lot of money, coming in, doing 4 hours of work and getting paid a couple grand because the people can't figure out control. Okay, marketing. This is our last part. Marketing is the key, especially in indie games. And it's hard to get heard. There's a lot of games out there. The good news is that most games are horribly marketed and no one knows they're there. So if you even are a little bit good at marketing, you can get your game heard. But keep in mind, you definitely have to do marketing. Number one, a video and a website. So, you need this is about your website. You need to have a website that has all the information about the game. This is basic stuff, really basic stuff, but don't crowd your page with future projects. Don't put a bunch of crap in there about why did the game and all that. Hide that in other pages if you have to put it in there. The opening landing page needs to be dead simple. Here's why you should buy my game. Here's why it's a good game. Keep it simple. And keep in mind, a lot of people don't speak English when you're looking at it. So the global game market is huge. One thing I always try to tell people in Georgia who are working on games is that don't worry about the American market. You don't live in the American market. You don't live in the European market, really, sort of. But you are a developing economy, and there's lots of games that sell in this market. You know, you can sell to Central Asia, and you can still sell a lot of games. So if you made a game that was about the Silk Road, that sort of played up to anyone who lives in a country that's along the former Silk Road, that could be a game that could sell very well to a market that you know more about than those game designers in San Francisco. Target niche markets, geek subcultures, strange hobbies. Find some niche that you're in already. Let's say you like blowing things up, you know, you have a fireworks habit like a lot of Georgians do. Okay, make a game about blowing things up. Whatever your hobby is, make a game about that. Find your subculture, especially a subculture you're already part of. If you're already a part of some chat room that is into latex doll, never mind. So WhatsApp is a great example. Does anyone know how much this sold for to Facebook yesterday? $19 billion. And guess what its revenue is? 0. Okay? And guess how many users they have in America and Europe? Almost 0. Almost 0 users in America, but it's the fastest growing app in history. It's the biggest app in history. And they have almost 0 users in Europe and North America. And so this shows you that you can make a game that doesn't hit the major markets and still make such a big wave that these people start a company, and 2 years later, they made $19 billion. If you want to be a game designer, get this book. All right, A Theory of Fun. He's like the chief designer at a couple different companies. And so life's a game, you better enjoy it.